March voting session, that all came back.
May.
Sorry, May.
So at that point in time, that we would have something real in our hands to be able to ask questions about, to be able to verify, is this favorable for us, is it favorable for others, or would be potentially negative.
Yes.
And that's the only time we could really dig and really see, you know, what our options, what they're saying. And then at that point in time, we really have a way to compare numbers to see if it's really honestly a benefit. Right now, it's all estimated, right?
Correct. We need those proposals to be able to actually do an analysis. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so the scenario could be that it would come back unfavorable. Common assessment then is to call those vendors and say, why was it so high? We could receive feedback, are we too stringent on what we're asking for, which is a constraint on the vendor, making them unable to fulfill our needs without cost of district a lot. So some of that then we can re-advertise and repost less stringent, and maybe we have a more favorable package. That just pushes the time.
Are we in a place where we have comfortableness to see this happen in how many months? Or,
Yeah,
you know, if we're not caught in the lurch because all this stuff is rolling along and then all of a sudden things kind of fall apart because there's surprises, what does that do to us? Do we have options to make sure we can try to keep this thing streamlined all the way through?
Yeah, so the biggest, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create this document, we're gonna review it administratively. Most likely probably have it reviewed administratively with the client. And then the board will have their option. And then we just have to submit that and advertise it. There's really, without knowing what may or may not, the vendors may or may not be able to bid on, we can't answer that. It's a lot of variability there. Like I said, but some of that is that it came out unfavorable, change, restructure, and propose. So then the cafeteria RFP is in a different timeline than the other one. The cafeteria RFP, I had mandatory pre-bid walkthroughs. So any vendor they had to come to RSVP and attend the pre-bid walkthrough. I had 4 vendors attend that on the 19th. I walked through each of the 3 food service spaces, and very little feedback. Most of them were seasoned vendors, have been through this for a while, so they're just reviewing minor questions. The committee, evaluation committee, we'll have 4 members on that. They will review those proposals on March 19th, and then we'll be able to turn around to have award a winner in April. Currently, the committee is being made up of Dr. Mitchell, myself, Mary Brenneman, and then Jen Boyd. You were asked, and you
Mary wanted to do it.
gave it to
Mary
me. So
said she wanted to do it.
those are the 4 evaluation members. So we'll evaluate those. Each of the 4 vendors have the opportunity to present about 10 minutes with their proposal and offer some samples of case testing. We'll evaluate them on the criteria of the set forth in the proposal.
Now, do they give you like a sample menu for lunch or something?
Yes, they have it. Part of their proposal is a sample menu. Yes. So that one's at a quicker time. We'll actually have an award hopefully in April time.
Let me ask you, if we switch from permits, how big of a deal is that?
I guess what relation?
Like financially, or just time frame, you move them out, moving others in, or what is it really?
So I would
It's
say
not going to affect
yes.
how I vote, but I'm just saying.
I would say yes. I'd say they would have from the award in April voting session until the start of school in August to work out those problems.
So it all happened in the summer.
Correct. They would be able to have that change of employees and all this stuff. But it's a big deal for them to change. The district will not more or less feel that. It would be behind the scenes through the administration office. Feel that not necessarily students or staff.
So the big deal behind the scenes is just logistics on the road.
And our end, making sure we have accounts are set up and making sure we have clearances and everybody, we have the prior training and whatnot. So not many people will deal with that. I would say yes, it's a big deal, but most, not everybody's gonna be dealing with it.
Probably the biggest deal for our employees, the current employees in Charlotte Wells.
Correct, that would be a bigger deal.
That's what I was gonna say, because some of our internal food service employees now are employees of Charlotte Wells. And so most likely the new vendor, us would want them to become employees of the new vendor if there is.
Correct.
That's the big one.
Yes, that is. So any questions? That is the conclusion of the RFP process. That's all that's going on here. I have to ask myself.
Yep. It's a lot of processes, it's not a lot of stuff in here, but it's a lot of telling when those things can happen.
Yes, the biggest thing is April is going to be more of a, that's going to be more of our focus is RFPs and making sure that they meet our expectations before we go out to bid. And also looking at the board of package that we have. Okay, so we'll jump into the budget portion. The first section, if you look around most districts, I like to, when it comes to budget time, are mandated, what we call your mandated expenses. These are what the typical 5 mandated expenses that every school district struggles with year to year. Their salaries, benefits, special education, cyber charter school, and debt service. Like every other school district, no exception. So all those mandated expenses we're looking at contractual salary benefits and mandated charter school and our debt service payment increase between last year and this year, $1.75 million.
You're saying the cyber charter school is just because of the.
So cyber charter school, that increase is due to rising enrollments and charter school funding, how they are funded. So they are funded by our, revenue or expenses run through and we pay for students attending their school. We receive the tax money that gets funded to the cyber charter school. The way the funding formula works is they get formulas based off of criteria they have from the state, mostly based off of our budgets that we project out and they give money for that. So those tuition rates have been escalating every year. And compounded with rising enrollments is increased costs here for every district.
So how much, what's the difference in enrollment from this year to that, and what's the budget, and what about the rate increase itself?
Yeah.
So the rate increase, without having specifics, is around $1,500 for a regular ed kid, per kid, extra a year. So that totals around just over $13,000 per kid for regular ed. And then it's closer to $2,500, I believe, for special ed, which is about over $33,000 for special ed. And these are flat costs.
And how much is enrollment again?
We have, this year, we saw an increase from about 5% to 6%, so we saw about a 1% increase in our cyber charter enrollment in Littlestown from last year.
You have an idea?
Say that again?
What's the numerator? In other words, 5%, 6%, what is that 1%? Is that, how many students would that be?
Honestly, just,
I think it was about 10 or 12.
yeah, there was about, that 1%, looks here, like, was about 20 kids.
And you see it's about 10 kids in regular ed.
Yeah. The actual numbers were 4.57% to 6.06%.
Just help me get an idea
So
of
it's
this.
like you're adding another 20 kids for each.
Well, we're adding this cost to accommodate for this enrollment, so it's a little bit different.
It's always a year behind.
Correct.
So this is catching us up from those increased enrollments we didn't anticipate from prior year. It's more of a catch up method than anything.
Just
But
because we do the school choice,
Correct.
they can go through and make it and say, I want to do this, I want to do cyber, I want to do this, I want to, you know.
this is gaining a lot of focus at Harrisburg due to the skewed nature of the
As we were talking, Tom recommended that I provide some information to the board, so at the Monday meeting on March 10th, I'll be able to provide some introductory information about actually what cyber charter schools have made over the past 3 years, general funding, a little bit of that information that we provided in that report. It's about a 211-page report, so I'm just giving you.
You're going to skip it down
first
one for us.
I'm going to give you the first idea.
Yeah, there's five cyber charter schools that, the state auditor, general fund, so out of that, there's all five of them. Very similar to the general fund. But it's very, shocking. Lastly, the debt service. A little highlight here. This is, the last major increase we have in our debt service, so this is principal and interest payments. We've ramped up from prior. We are at 1.6 million, and we've ramped up to our level funding, more or less, 4.1. We will have some changes every year. It's not a static number, but the changes should be minor, less than $10,000 change. One year might be up a little, next year out. That number is level funding. This is the last one. So last year we had 870. That was the biggest ramp, and this is the last one here. Ramp up to the debt service. Any questions here from the annual expenses? All right, so we'll look at some increases in expenses that are affecting the budget. So we are not an exception to inflation. Some of the biggest areas we saw inflation here at the district is in our professional services, as they pay their employees more. They charge that back in their rate of service. So some of that is inflation on that on us as well. Professional services.
To the contractors.
Correct. Some of those are year-to-year contracts. So a lot of times we verbally say, what's your rate going to be for next year, so we can have anticipation in the budget. And they say, we're looking at 3%, 4%, 5% increase to your rate for next year. So we put that in there as anticipation of those contract increases. Some of them are static because they are locked in, but not all of them are locked in.
So can you tell us what specific people are increasing the rates?
So a big one would be our substitute services. Our custodial services will run out at the end of this year. If you remember back, we did an RFP for custodial services underneath the prior board. This rate increase is still significantly below our RFP rate. Of what they came back and said that we would pay, and that was 2 years ago. So right now, still financially in our favor to continue with this company. That was the reason we went out to RFP the last time. The prior existing company kept raising their rates. We thought it was too high. We found this new company through the RFP, and they gave us a special rate. And the way we structured that was significantly cheaper. Still in our favor.
These are one-year contracts.
The custodial one was a 2-year that runs out at the end of this year due to us changing how we're going to have buildings. It didn't make sense to have a multi-year, so we went back out to get that structure. So the consensus was to continue with 1 year with the current company, we'll reassess it during the RFP. As you mentioned, we have several other in the works, and to add another one that we are working on.
Anything other than substitute custodial?
Well, I'm looking at your substitute, and that actually went down $150,000. Not substitute.
We outsource that to professional services.
And then you have overtime salaries, $43,000.
Yeah, so as part of the CBA contract, there's some changes in the contract that
Secretary salaries were up $31,000.
compensation plan change. So the whole top section of that is all fairly contractual.
Substitute bus drivers, that's like $6,000.
machine guards that you see at the first quarter of SSO, we hired a SSO here in-house. Yes.
So the substitute provider is Kellyanne. And so where did our rate being paid for? You all heard that before? Higher or lower?
Some of that's based off of our prior substitute rate and some other factors.
Yeah, it's basically what we pay our substitutes, or what we would pay our substitutes. And then we do have a slight markup, when we did that, markup was less than what the P-Search contribution was for our substitutes. Anytime we have, an employee, we are required to pay a certain portion of the P-Search in the state employee retirement system. So we've been able to see that, I believe this year, that contribution or that offset, increased a little bit because of increase in Kellyanne.
So are they paying the substitutes more, or are they just?
They are employing the substitutes, so we contract with them, they pay the substitutes, we pay Kellyanne the substitutes.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, is it that the substitutes are going to pay more, or they just pay more for the administration of
I'd say
providing the
both.
substitutes?
Some,
I'm unsure of that, I'll have to take a look and see, I'm unsure of that, what we're paying for substitutes. I think we've kept the same cost as the other districts in the area, so that everybody's substituting for every district in the area. One doesn't have an advantage over the other.
This is the only contract we've done.
the custodial was another technology.
Or substitution. Okay.
Yeah,
Is there other vendors that provide the same service that we can do?
oh, that's Kellyanne.
Okay, so it's all in that one umbrella.
I would say there's Kelly, substitute services, I would say, I don't believe there's other vendors out there that provide this.
Yeah, when we looked at the sub-vendors, Steve, we looked at, STS, ESS, and Kellyanne.
So there's three.
There were three that we know that serve this area, that's correct. And when we looked at that, we took into account some others that had ESS services. My former district is STS. And when we looked at those schools and looked at what was to offer, Kellyanne had the best overall, customer satisfaction for it. And they were very competitive with what we paid on the substitutes.
So were they the most expensive or the most cheap in that?
I don't know that
selection
they were,
process?
I think they were all about the same.
Okay.
We actually got a little bit of a cost savings with Kellyanne at that point in time.
You know, when people look and you run to see like cafeteria services, and you got 3 or 4 vendors.
Sure.
Sometimes you gotta go back and say, hey guys, you gotta get the best number and get them to work and get it to where the point where we can try to get the best, service out of it. So I'm not saying that you didn't do that, I'm just saying we just wanna try to keep.
Yeah,
It was under,
It was a number of years ago that Chris and I talked about that.
3 years ago at this point, we discussed it,
Yeah.
2 years ago.
It's not a bad option to take a look. I wouldn't be surprised if they're all roughly the same, that we would get.
Who's hungrier, who will give the best, it all,
And how many years is our contract with Kellyanne?
That was a
Year contract.
Can they lock them in that in a multi-year so that they can't increases?
That's an option. We can talk to them. That's a definite option. They've been, from my experience and what I've heard from teachers and other principals, they've been very good with what we've done and had about an 82% fill rate recently, with our substitutes, which is really good.
If it's cheaper than what we pay with Pacers, then definitely want to continue to do that, but if we're never going to lower the price on us, we're not going to lock them in for a multi-year contract. I'd like to think to explore.
You're looking at that, it's gonna be 391. Yeah, so they mostly offset
Pretty sure.
That would be, which is the least professional services we're talking about here, so that would be, basically everything. So some of these numbers will be reallocated to other things. Unfortunately, so we want to just talk about.
Is that the totality of all of the professional services?
That is the catch-all account for 330. So yes, without going back to, I don't have all that, exactly.
Elliot, $391.
We have the insurance services are, liability insurance. It won't be here in the market, there's going to be a significant increase in insurance this year. This is in anticipation of that, so in a future size, it has a pending number because I have renewal with our agent, goes out and markets